are these people?
Let's get to our next story. So,
which you mentioned made you cry.
Yes, it did. It did make me cry. Real men do that.
You should make this a series, to be honest with you.
What, the stories that make Reef cry series? Yeah, I mean, I think the stories from Gaza. I mean, luckily, this is from the Electric and Intifada, which they actually showcase Palestinian writers. But you know, I find it important to actually bring the voices of the people that we care about. So, and I felt like since our stories last week about food in Gaza, go check that out if you've not already. I felt like these were in the similar, like, context. But this is from Mahamadi from the Intifada, and Hope in the Shape of a Tomato is the name of the title. Again, links to our articles are always down in the description. But they write, I live with my sister Haneen in a small tent on the outskirts of Al-Zawaida near Deir al-Balah in the central Gaza Strip. Before the ceasefire, trying to survive the constant Israeli attacks consumed all our time. Hunger made those days pass with slow, unbearable pain. Haneen, 26, is a mother to 2 children, Riyadh 5 and Imad 3. She carries the weight of the world on her shoulders while trying to hide her pain behind a smile that fools no one. Every morning I wake up to the sound of Riyadh trying to craft a new toy from sticks and stones. I'll make a tomato tree, and we'll eat from it every day, he says with a voice full of hope. Imad sits behind him, clapping enthusiastically as if cheering his brother on to turn the dream into reality. One day in November, we all sat inside our tent trying to share what little food we had left, a small piece of bread and a bit of olive oil. Imad, too young to grasp the meaning of hunger, stared at the tiny plate in front of him and then at his mother as if asking why there wasn't more. Riyadh, with his innocent curiosity, looked at me and asked, why can't we eat until we're full? I had no answer. Suddenly, Haneen stood up and left the tent. I knew she was going to look for something, anything, to feed her children. After a while, she returned, holding a small, withered tomato in her hand. She looked at us with a forced smile and said, I found this in the nearby field. We'll add it to our dinner. She sat on the ground, placed the tomato on a piece of stale bread, and began cutting it with extreme care. She treated the tomato as if it were the most precious thing she had. The children gathered around her, their eyes shining with excitement. She divided the tomato slices among us. Riyadh took a small piece and looked at it cautiously before asking, Mama, if I eat it slowly, will it grow bigger? Haneen laughed softly and replied, yes, Riyadh, if you eat it with love, it will feel like it's growing. Imad ate his slice of the tomato carefully as if we're afraid it would vanish too quickly. I noticed the exhaustion in my sister's eyes and the worry for her children's future. I realized hunger wasn't the only weight on her shoulders. After we finished eating, Riyadh went outside the tent and started collecting stones and sticks to craft his tomato tree. Imad sat beside him, helping arrange the tomato fruits made of small rocks. That night, after the children had fallen asleep, I sat with Haneen outside the tent. The moon illuminated the empty field in front of us. I asked her how she found the strength to keep going. She answered quietly, I have no choice. Riyadh and Imad think the tomato I brought today was a miracle, and I want to believe that too. They don't understand that tomorrow night might bring nothing. I had no words to offer her. I just sat beside her, watching the field and wondering if more miracles awaited us. In the days that followed, Riyadh and Imad began treating the field outside the tent as if it were a magical farm. They buried seeds that found unsuitable for eating, saying, when the tomato tree grows, the food will return, and so will Baba. Their father, Mahmoud Samour, is a teacher at Al-Aqsa University. The Israeli military detained him in November when the family tried to move to the south for safety. He remains a captive in Israeli detention. I watched Haneen, realizing how her children's simple dream had turned into something resembling faith for her. Every day she went out with the boys, watering the ground with the little water we had, and whispering a quiet prayer no one else could hear. Maybe the earth will bloom one day. Maybe. But I knew that Haneen wasn't just watering the earth. She was nurturing hope in her children's hearts, a hope that tomorrow might be less cruel and that life, despite everything, could be reborn from a single tomato. Thoughts, Care Bear?
This is why I teach young kids.
Yeah.
They are not jaded yet. Everything, and it just reminds me, yeah, it's obviously it sucks if young children especially go through tragedy and pain. But I don't think we give young children credit for how resilient they can be and how innocent they can be in terms of they're not entirely jaded to the world yet, which is why it pains me when children unnecessarily go through that kind of pain to the point where they're so, I'm not sure the word, but so, jaded early that it kills me. But it's still the idea of, for them, there's everything is possible. And that's the type of thinking that I want to ultimately instill in my kids, because literally for them, they can be anything. They can do anything.
Yeah.
And my job is to help curate that possibility for them. My job is not to crush their dreams. If anything, my job is to cultivate that.
Yeah.
So if they believe that a tomato will grow from that ground, despite, and we know the reality, that earth is so polluted that nothing will probably grow. If not, it's not going to be good. But I'm not going to tell those kids that.
I wanted to add to this.
Belief,
they were talking about their water supply and that they were actually watering this like fake garden. Like, I think that that's even more when you realize that their water is like they're not getting any
polluted.
Well, not just yes,
right.
Yes,
or not.
Right, or like none at all. But this is in the West Bank, so it's slightly different, but very similar. But I think it gives some context to that.
I can't hear it.
Oh, how about I fix that? How about I do that? And action.
I can't wash my hair because of the Israeli occupation. All of our tanks are out of water. We only get water every 15 to 20 days. Hence the tanks. And if you're out of luck until the next refill. These water tanks are a staple on Palestinian houses in the West Bank to combat the chronic water shortage. But the problem isn't that there's not enough water. The problem is even our water sources are under occupation, and it's all controlled by the Israeli government and private Israeli corporations, who allot Palestinians less water than the World Health Organization recommends. But why? What are they doing with all our water? Funneling it into neighboring illegal settlements, where Israelis have a continuous supply of water and consume more than double their Palestinian neighbors. And to top it off, the Israeli company that supplies Palestinians in Bethlehem and Hebron with 70% of our water is reducing that amount even more. I can't wash my hair because of the Israeli occupation. All of our tanks
Pause.
are out of...
Pause. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think that's makes it even more like that they're using that water to like have this garden for the children. I find like heartbreaking to say the least, you know, but
yeah,
also inspiring at the same time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the same vein, this story, again from the Electronic Intifada, this time from Rajaa, Altana, both of these writers in Gaza, so appreciate the work they are doing. But they write, in a small tent on the outskirts of Al-Mawasi in Khan Yunis, my sister Yara lives with her 2 children Yasmin, and Muhammad. Before Israel's genocidal assault, my sister and her family lived with me and mine in a modest home in Gaza City. Yara cared for her 2 children, while her husband, Ibrahim, worked in the market selling water for her 2 children. Selling water to earn money for the family. I worked as a teacher at a nearby school. Our lives were simple, but filled with love and peace. We were displaced at the beginning of the Israeli attacks in October when our home became unsafe under Israelis' relentless, indiscriminate bombing. We fled on foot, carrying only what we could. After a long journey fraught with...
Pause right there.
Yes.
So, notice how you said displaced at the beginning.
Yes.
Because I'm seeing a lot of folks online and people that I know who are like, with Trump's recent thing of displacing them, though, people are like, oh, well, look at how you voted. Like, look what look at what Trump is doing now. Bitches, this has been happening since
For
October.
a minute. Yeah.
And that was happening under Biden.
And then happening way before then, on top of that.
So, right. So it's just another example of just like Trump bad, Trump boogeyman, that they want to focus on that, when the reality is they've been displaced, since really the turn of the since 1948, but more especially like within the last decade, and more particularly within the last year, where people in northern Gaza had to go to the south in Rafah. Like, that was in the news not so long ago, and a lot of these folks have already forgotten that.
Well, and think about, in our last story, they fled to south like they were told to do.
Right.
The father was still detained because he worked at Alaska. Right? Like, So, like, it is more than one way to be dangerous to travel in that area. So,
right.
Anyway, after a long journey fraught with danger, hunger, and fear, we found refuge in a small tent on the outskirts of Khan Yunis. Muhammad, my 4-year-old nephew, has autism. He seemed to live in a world entirely his own. For him, life revolved around one thing: a red apple. Muhammad didn't fully understand the chaos around him, nor did he care. Apples were his sanctuary. He loved the texture, the color, scent, and the way they spun between his small fingers. They weren't just apples to him. They were his safe haven in a world full of fear and disorder. But apples became rare during genocide. The last apple my sister had managed to get in weeks, she gave to Muhammad. He refused to eat it, insisting instead on keeping it close. The apple became dried out, cracked, and lost its vibrant red color, but to Muhammad, it remained his most precious treasure. Muhammad, can you give Mama the apple? Yara asked him one evening as he clutched it tightly. He shook his head firmly, silently telling her, don't take my world away. Yara didn't push further. That particular night, a cold December evening, with the sounds of bombs tearing through the sky, something remarkable happened. Muhammad, without a word, approached Yasmin. He broke his dried out apple in half and handed her a piece. Looked at her with innocent yet profound love. He said in his small, stumbling voice, Yasmin, you eat. A child who couldn't understand the horrors of war understood hunger. A boy who lived in a closed world opened his heart to share the only thing that gave him comfort. The next morning, my sister woke to the sound of her children playing outside the tent. Muhammad was sitting on the ground, holding what was left of the apple's peel. He was drawing lines in the sand with it. His drawings didn't make sense. It was as if he was creating a new world from the ashes of ours. Life in that tent wasn't easy, and hunger was an unrelenting enemy, yet Muhammad's apple became a symbol for the family, one of hope, love, and resilience, even in the darkest times. That's it. That's the stories. A little bit more. Muhammad's father, Ibrahim, Yara's husband, was separated from us during the chaos. He now spends most of his day in the market selling water and trying to secure food and aid for the family. His absence from the tent is difficult, but he does everything he can to support us. My sister Yara now says, Muhammad taught me that the smallest things can carry the greatest meanings. So, thoughts, Care Bear?
Fun sped.
Yeah. But it does say,
When I
perhaps,
say
and this
sped,
is,
special education.
yeah, it does say that, and this is why I
Special
wanted to bring
education.
it, was perhaps no one will remember this story after the war ends, but I will never forget it. Muhammad, the boy who lived in his own world, taught me that love can be bigger than hunger, and that even a dried out apple can be the greatest gift in the world. And I think remembering these stories is super important. Like, I don't want them to just be lost in the ether, so might as well put them in stone here on our channel, you know? But
Well, that's why I'm saying you should make this a series. So
yeah,
that way you can create a playlist for them. So that way, if not to say people will forget, but at least you have something on record to show that you actually took the time to care about. Look, it's one thing to talk about news or whatever, but it's another thing to hear from actual people. Now, granted, we have tried
yeah,
to have Palestinians on the show, and obviously, because reasons of safety or whatever else, that's been extremely difficult. But this is probably the next best thing that we can do. So, but it's important because it humanizes them. And when and especially for you guys in our chat, our family, like when you hear a lot of these pro-Israeli shows say, Hamas and all this kind of stuff, you can show them this. It's like, this is the reality of what's happening. And this is happening because this is not Hamas's responsibility. They're not the occupying force here.
no,
This is happening because of Israel. They're the ones in control. And now Trump is basically saying he wants to take over Gaza, which now people are touching their pearls about.
right,
But Biden has facilitated the means of now which Trump is now able to expedite the destruction and the rebuild.
yeah.
And
It's
I
been the
feel to the
plan from
degree
the
I don't.
beginning.
Right.
So
It's just that Trump has been more overt in saying that. We've talked about how that's been a more covert operation for really for the last 2 years, but people didn't care and would want you to rather vote for the man that is complicit in that and silent about it than a man who is openly bragging about, oh no, we're going to do this. So, but Children Man rock. That's why I work with them. That's why, especially young kids. And
yeah,
shout out to Muhammad, even though he's on the spectrum, and I think this is just an example. Now, I don't know Muhammad, but it seems like he's more functionally capable, given
yeah,
what is read in the story, than others who may not be. But, even people who have special needs, I would argue are more capable of being human than most of us, because I argue that they are more connected to the world than most of us are. They do not generally take the things that they see for granted, but they can also be the biggest faith givers if you give them the room
yeah,
to be. So Muhammad proved that, and I know even in my teaching, there have been children who have was bad in various levels have shown that to me too. So, so I think one, it's important, support special education, because this is the fear right now, especially with the Department of Ed, that a lot of these programs that help assist these populations in particular, teachers will not be able to do their jobs to educate, and more importantly, like help develop these children in a way that they can be someone like Muhammad, because at the end of the day, like they have to be engaged in this world too. And we need them to be engaged in a way that can be helpful. So it's great that Muhammad, even though he was young, he was able to impact the world in a small way, but in a major way, I would argue. But that's what we need. We need people to be engaged and be ready to show support and show love and to show that activism when needed. And this shows even at 4 years old that children, even with a disability, can do that. So I think that's the important message that stood out to me in both these stories, that young children are capable literally of changing the world.
Yeah.
And if we give them the space and the empowerment to do it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And bringing these kinds of stories, certainly why we're demonetized. So scan that QR code on your screen, go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork and support our channel if you'd like to see more of this type of content. But we get it, times are tough. You can help our channel by liking and subscribing. Same as everyone else asks you to do the same thing. Share the video. That would help immensely. Send this to your friends, your family. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. How hope-broken is that story to you? Because it was pretty bad for me. But anyway, thanks for watching.